There are stories that entertain people for a moment. And then there are stories that stay with you forever. Stories that remind you that greatness isn't something you are born into. It's something you build, slowly, painfully, relentlessly. This is one of those stories. This is the story of Jon Bon Jovi, a young man from a small town who refused to accept an ordinary life, even when everything around him suggested that was all he would ever have. In Sayreville, New Jersey, life was simple, predictable. People woke up, went to work, came home, and repeated the cycle. Dreams existed, but they were often quiet, kept inside, never fully pursued. Jon grew up in that environment. His father worked as a barber. His mother was a florist. There was no roadmap to fame, no blueprint for becoming a rock star. There was only reality, and reality didn't include stages, crowds, or global recognition. But Jon didn't see the world the way others did. From a young age, he felt something pulling him toward music. Not casually, not occasionally, completely. It wasn't just something he enjoyed. It was something he needed. Something that gave him purpose when everything else felt ordinary. He didn't just listen to songs. He studied them. He didn't just sing along. He felt every word. And slowly, without even realizing it, he began to shape his identity around that passion. While other kids were figuring things out, Jon was already searching for something bigger. He joined local bands, playing wherever he could, small bars, local clubs, anywhere with a stage and a microphone. These weren't glamorous performances. Sometimes people ignored him. Sometimes the crowd was barely there. Sometimes it felt like he was shouting into silence. But he kept showing up, because deep inside, he believed something that most people never allow themselves to believe. That one day, it would matter. Opportunity didn't come easy. There were no instant breaks, no sudden fame, just years of effort with little recognition. But what Jon lacked in opportunity, he made up for in proximity. Through his cousin, Jon Bon Jovi, who owned a recording studio in New York, Jon found himself close to the world he wanted to enter. But he wasn't entering as a star. He was entering as a worker. He cleaned floors. He carried equipment. He watched others create. For most people, that would have been enough. Just being close to the industry would feel like progress. But Jon wasn't there to observe. He was there to prepare. When the studio emptied out, when the lights dimmed, when everyone else went home, Jon stayed behind. And in those quiet moments, he worked. He recorded demos. He experimented with his sound. He practiced not for attention, but for readiness, because he understood something most people overlook. Your moment doesn't define you. Your preparation for that moment does. Then came the song, Runaway. At first, nothing happened. No headlines, no immediate recognition, just another recording in a world full of music. But then something unexpected happened. A radio station picked it up, and people started listening. Then they started calling in. Then they started asking for it again. What began as a small spark quickly turned into momentum. The song spread. It reached more ears. It created curiosity. And for the first time, Jon wasn't invisible anymore. That moment could have been the peak. It could have been the one success followed by silence. But Jon didn't want a moment. He wanted a legacy. So he made a decision that would define everything that followed. He built a band. He brought together musicians who weren't just talented, but committed. People who were willing to work, to struggle, to grow. Together, they formed Bon Jovi. But forming a band doesn't guarantee success. In many ways, it makes the journey harder. More personalities, more pressure, more uncertainty. Their early years were filled with effort, but not dominance. They released albums that showed potential, but didn't immediately take over the world. They toured constantly, performing night after night, trying to connect with audiences. There were moments where the dream felt fragile, moments where giving up would have been easier. But they didn't stop, because they understood that success isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in the moments nobody sees. Then came 1986, the year everything changed. Slippery When Wet, an album that didn't just succeed, it exploded. You Give Love a Bad Name grabbed attention. Wanted Dead or Alive told a story people could feel. And then came Livin' on a Prayer. That song changed everything. It wasn't just music. It was emotion. It was struggle. It was hope. It told the story of people trying to survive, trying to hold on, trying to believe that things could get better, and millions of people saw themselves in it. That's when Bon Jovi became more than a band. They became a voice. Success came fast after that. Massive tours, sold-out arenas, global recognition. But success at that level comes with a cost. The pressure to stay on top, the expectation to keep delivering, the exhaustion of constant movement. In 1988, they released New Jersey, another massive success. The hits continued. The crowds grew even larger. But behind the scenes, things were changing. Fatigue set in. The lifestyle became overwhelming, and eventually, the band needed space. They stepped away. For fans, it felt like uncertainty. Was this the end? But sometimes stepping back isn't quitting. It's resetting. In 1992, they returned with Keep the Faith. This wasn't the same band. The sound had evolved. The image had changed. The message had deepened. They weren't just performing anymore. They were expressing. And once again, people listened. As the music industry shifted in the late 90s, many bands from their era disappeared. Trends changed. Sounds evolved. New artists took over. But Bon Jovi adapted. In 2000, they released It's My Life. And just like that, a new generation connected with them. The message was timeless. Don't wait. Don't settle. Take control of your life. While others faded, Bon Jovi remained, not because they resisted change, but because they embraced it. Years later, another challenge came. Richie Sambora left the band. For many, it felt like losing part of the identity that made Bon Jovi what it was. But Jon made a choice. Keep going. Because the story wasn't finished. Because the mission was bigger than any one moment. Because quitting was never part of the plan. Today, Bon Jovi stands as one of the most successful rock bands in history. But their legacy isn't just measured in albums sold or concerts performed. It's measured in impact, in the people who found hope in their music, in the individuals who kept going because of a song, in the dreamers who decided not to quit. Jon Bon Jovi didn't just build a career. He built something that lasts. And maybe that's the most important part of this story. Not where it ended, but how it was built, step by step, moment by moment, failure by failure, victory by victory. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a story about music. It's a story about belief, about persistence, about refusing to accept limits placed on you by the world. It's a reminder that where you start does not define where you finish, that being unknown today does not mean you will be unknown forever, that the life you dream about is possible, but only if you're willing to chase it, even when it's hard, even when it's uncertain, even when nobody believes in you. Because every legend was once just a person with a dream who decided not to give up.